Looking back, I remember how Sarah and I first met at a friend's barbecue on a crisp autumn evening. She wore this soft sweater, hair in a loose braid, and she smiled like she wasn't holding back. I was instantly drawn to her, the way she listened, the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about helping patients at the hospital. I was just an ordinary guy, a 36-year-old construction manager, but with her, I felt extraordinary. We started dating soon after. Simple nights turned into shared mornings. Cooking dinner together, movie marathons on the couch, her head on my shoulder, my hand in hers. She loved leaving little notes in my lunch. I'd bring her coffee when she had long shifts. We made plans, kids someday, a bigger house maybe. We supported each other through tough times. When I had a bad week at work, she made me laugh. When she lost a patient, I held her while she cried. Our wedding day felt like a dream. Fairy lights in the backyard, friends and family cheering, her in a flowing dress, me in a simple suit. I thought we were unbreakable. I thought she was my forever. Looking back now, I wonder how I missed the cracks forming beneath the surface. It started small, almost nothing. Sarah would ask me random questions, like, "Do you have a will?" or "How much is left in your retirement account?" At first, I brushed it off, thinking she was just curious, maybe planning something sweet for our future. But then she started staying late at the hospital more often. Her phone was always flipped face down, and she'd jump to answer calls in another room. When I asked what was going on, she'd smile, kiss me on the cheek, and say, "It's just work. You know how crazy it gets." I wanted to believe her, so I did. But the feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. One night, I tried to talk to her as we sat on the couch, dinner dishes still on the table. I told her I felt like something was off, that we seemed more like roommates than partners lately. She laughed it off, saying I was being dramatic. "You work too much. You're stressed," she'd say. But her words felt hollow, like a mask. I told myself not to overthink it, not to become that guy who snoops and accuses. But when I caught her deleting a text before I could see it, my heart sank. I didn't want to believe she was hiding something, but deep down, I knew. I just didn't know how bad it really was. I tried to shake the feeling, but it gnawed at me like a splinter under my skin. Late at night, lying in bed next to Sarah while she scrolled through her phone, I stared at the ceiling, replaying the little moments. Her questions about my savings, the sudden interest in my old truck's title, the way she flinched when I asked about her day. One night, I sat in the dark and made a decision. I opened a separate bank account in my name only, something I never thought I'd do. I gathered documents, my house deed, car titles, account statements, and stored them in a safe. I started tracking every dollar, every transfer, watching for patterns like I was studying a blueprint for disaster. I felt guilty, like I was betraying her by not trusting her. I hated the person I was becoming, cautious, suspicious, cold, and yet I couldn't ignore the pit in my stomach. I tried to keep up appearances, movie nights, weekend hikes, coffee runs, but the weight of it all sat on my chest. When she kissed me goodbye, I wondered if she was lying through her teeth. When she laughed at my jokes, I questioned if it was real. Love and doubt, they don't mix well, and I was stuck in the middle, unable to breathe. It happened on a random Tuesday. I came home from work, tired and ready to crash, when Sarah handed me an envelope like she was giving me a bill. Her face was calm, too calm. No tears, no trembling, just cold detachment as she said, "It's over. I've already filed." I opened the papers and felt like the floor gave out beneath me. Divorce, no explanation, no chance to talk it through, just a neatly typed legal document. I asked her, voice shaking, "Why? What did I do?" She barely looked up. "This is for the best," she said, as if we were talking about selling a used car. The woman I loved for years, my wife, my partner, had become a stranger in my own home. The next day, she was gone, quit her job, shut down her social media, blocked her family and friends. Even her closest friends told me they hadn't heard from her. Her accounts were closed, her phone off. It was like she had vanished into thin air. I spent weeks in a fog, barely eating, barely sleeping. Friends tried to reach out, offering sympathy, but I felt hollow. I replayed every conversation, every moment, trying to find the missing piece. I kept asking myself the same question. How can someone disappear so completely? And what did I miss? It took months to feel like I could breathe again. I threw myself into work, long hours at the site, late nights in the office, weekends tinkering with old tools. The routine was comforting, predictable. But the ache in my chest didn't fade right away. I started fishing again, something I'd loved before everything fell apart. It felt good to stand by the water, just me and the sound of the wind. Then I met Lily. She was a regular at the cafe I stopped by before work, always. Buried in a book, with a quiet smile that made you pause. We started chatting, nothing serious at first, just small talk. Then one day, she brought me a coffee before I even ordered, and it felt easy. Our first real date was a walk in the park with her rescue dog, Charlie. We laughed about how he tried to chase every squirrel. I started to remember what it felt like to enjoy small things. Cooking dinner together, her teasing me for how I overseason everything, sitting on the porch at sunset, sharing a beer in comfortable silence. There were moments I'd freeze, when she touched my hand, or when she said, "I trust you." My heart still flinched sometimes, but I was learning to let go, learning that love wasn't always a trap. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living. It happened on a rainy Thursday. I'd just come back from work, soaked, carrying groceries, when I saw her, Sarah, standing on my porch like a shadow from the past. She looked rough, hair a mess, dark circles under her eyes, clothes too thin for the weather. Her arms were crossed, face tight with bitterness. "I need to talk," she snapped, as if no time had passed. No apology, no explanation, just demands. She wanted money, saying I owed her for all the years she put up with me. She wanted part of the house, claimed she'd been wronged. Then, as if flipping a switch, her voice softened. Tears welled up as she spoke about how hard life had been, how I abandoned her, how she had no one. When she noticed Lily's coffee mug on my table, her face twisted. "You replaced me that fast," she hissed. I felt a cold rage simmering under my skin. The old me would have crumbled, tried to fix things, but not anymore. I saw her clearly for the first time. Not as the woman I once loved, but as someone who used love like a weapon. I didn't shout. I didn't plead. I stood my ground, hands steady, voice calm. I told her there was nothing left for her here. I wasn't her safety net anymore. She stormed off, slamming the door so hard it rattled the windows. I just stood there, heart pounding, but it wasn't fear, it was relief. A week later, she texted, "We need to talk, please." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. We sat across from each other at a diner, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and stale coffee. She looked worn down, a shadow of the woman I once knew. Then the truth spilled out. She'd reconnected with her ex, Marcus, after we split. She moved in with him on a farm in the middle of nowhere. They'd planned a new life together, invested everything, my money included. But it fell apart. The farm was in debt. Marcus left her, and now she was pregnant, probably with his kid, she admitted, though she couldn't be sure. She said she had nowhere to go, no money, no support. Her eyes pleaded, her voice soft. "Please, I'm in trouble. Can you help me? Just for a little while?" For a moment, I stared at her, almost feeling the old instinct to help, but it passed. The weight of the past, the lies, the betrayal, the months of doubt settled over me like armor. I leaned back, my voice steady. "I'm sorry for your situation, but that's not my problem anymore." Her mouth dropped open, shocked like she never expected me to say no. I paid my coffee bill, stood up, and left her there. As I walked to my truck, I felt lighter, maybe even grateful, because all those cracks, all the pain, it had taught me who I was, and who I wasn't anymore. Looking back, I see it clearly now. The lies weren't sudden. They were seeds she planted long before I noticed. I gave her my trust, my time, my heart, and she traded them for secrets and schemes. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself, but realizing I ignored the signs. But I'm done feeling guilty. I protected what I could, and I learned to stand up for myself. It's not about holding on to anger. It's about letting go of the person who never deserved my loyalty. I'm not the same man I was when we met. Back then, I thought love meant sacrifice, even when it hurt. Now I know love is a choice. When I make for myself first, I wake up lighter these days. My home feels like mine again. The future doesn't scare me. It's an open road, and I'm ready to walk it, without looking over my shoulder, without waiting for someone else to define my worth. She chose her path, and I chose not to drown with her. Sometimes the best response is silence. Sometimes the best choice is to walk away, and I did.